Today, Great.com talks with Alexandra Morgan, who's the CEO at Family House. If you haven't heard of them, they are a non-profit organisation who serves as a home away from home for families of children with life-threatening illnesses. If you are new here, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because today we learn the importance of supporting the families of children in need. Hello, Alexandra, and welcome to our podcast.
Hi, Ryan. Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you so much for being here, and I really look forward to this conversation today. So, to start with, for me and anybody new here, what is Family House and what do you do?
Family House is basically a pediatric guest house, and what we do is house families of children who are being treated in San Francisco for very serious illnesses. We've been around for 40 years. We can house up to 85 families per night. The primary diagnosis of the families, of the children of the families who stay with us is cancer, but we house children with all sorts of illnesses like organ transplants, preemies, GI kids, the whole realm. But we started to house kids with cancer, and now we house a great deal of other diagnoses.
Wow, that's so important. And it's so wonderful that there's organisations like yourselves out there that are supporting, say, these children in need. So, other than, say, the obvious, why is this so important?
Well, the reason it's important, and may I say that in England, you have the Great Ormond Street Hospital in London, and with a pediatric guest house. And the reason is when you have a major medical center that does research, this is where the cutting edge work is done all over the world at university medical centers. And the reason it's important is because that's typically where the best care is administered. And when it's your child that's catastrophically sick, you want to get the most cutting edge, the best, the most life-saving treatment that there is available from the best minds. And that's what happens at UCSF Medical Center. They really do a huge amount of pediatric research, especially on cancer and other illnesses. And it's really where people come to get saved. So they're not just coming from San Francisco or the Bay Area, they're coming from all over the world. When people come from all over the world, because we know that illnesses do not discriminate when it comes to socioeconomic background, we've got people who choose between putting gas in their car, you call it petrol, and eating. So we're talking about people who are very, very low income. Their child is catastrophically sick. They come from all over the world. And if they can make it to San Francisco, and there are ways of doing that, they need a free place to stay that is comfortable, that's clean, that's safe, and most importantly, that shows the compassion and care for what the families are going through. Because a child's catastrophic illness is an extremely isolating experience for any family. I don't care where you live. We've had families from China and Europe and, all over the world. And it's the exact same for every family. They want their kid to get well. They want to return to normalcy. They want to go home and live their lives and raise their children. For this amount of time that their child is sick, we are the community that they leave behind. They don't have their in-laws. They don't have their aunts and uncles. They don't have, their friends, neighbors, people who attend, their kids' schools or whatever. They're here by themselves. So the staff of Family House becomes the community of support that they need when they're facing life's most difficult challenge, which is keeping their child alive.
It's so obviously so nice to hear there's organisations like you guys out there to offer that support, but it's also so hard to hear because you said like these families are potentially low income, say potentially living on the breadline, and then having to say support and look after their children or loved ones that are in need of desperate help. So not only have they got the stress of their child, say, needing care, but then obviously the family home, etc., needs to run still, need to put fuel in your car, etc. So
Exactly.
yeah, so what are, say, some of the biggest needs of the families that you support, and how are you
Well,
part of the solution?
Well, Ryan, thank you for asking that, because people don't typically go too far below the surface when they hear what our mission is. But in addition to providing free housing, and what that looks like is every family has its own bedroom and bath. We have 2-bedroom suites so that the parents can stay in one room and the either sick child or sibling can stay in the other room. We provide transportation. Many people can't even get to San Francisco. Maybe they have a 5-hour drive. So we are able to email them gas cards or food cards or whatever they need. Once they get to San Francisco, we feed them. They don't have to worry about meals. They don't, if they come emergently, like they're airlifted or something, and they don't even have clothes, we make sure that they get new clothes. And then we provide whatever sort of emotional help they need as well. We have a full-time social worker on staff who is a mental health care provider. And then, after all those essentials and all those important things that people get, then we do birthday parties, we have singing lessons, we have music, we have ukulele lessons, we have all sorts of parties, outside activities. We have arts and crafts projects. We do whatever we can to help support the families and do some of the normalcy that they have left behind. We have school tutors. We have volunteers. Of course, during COVID, we can't have volunteers, but we have over 5,000 volunteers a year who come in, and they do all the things that I just described. They help clean the house, they make meals, they play with the kids, they do canned food drives, they do clothing drives. I mean, we have a tremendously successful community here. And Ryan, a lot of the people who support us are the corporate community. So we're near a lot of big tech, and they have been nothing but wonderful to us. So we're incredibly lucky to have put together a community. The sad part right now about COVID is that we can't have parties. We can't have people congregate. The families still have to wear the masks inside the house for, ultimate safety. So we've got a real sort of tension between the kind of support we want to give, but also maintaining the integrity of health and safety inside the house. So, we do the best we can. And on any given night, we have about 250 family members in the house. So there's a lot of support that happens.
Wow, that's so incredible that you have a lot of support there, like you say, and what you listed off there. So it's really nice to hear that you have that support there.
Right.
But then what then, say, for instance, does a family need to do in order to, say, qualify to get a place at Family House?
Well, great question. All of our families are referred by the hospital social workers. So about 3/4 of our families live at or below the poverty line. The hospital can sort of triage and figure out who needs our services the most, because everything we do, everything is offered free of charge to every single family who comes in. So the hospital social workers figure out who needs our services the most, or maybe the longest. We've had people stay for up to 3 years for a variety of reasons. Either they're from another country and they can't go back and forth, or the child is that sick and needs that much treatment. So the hospital social workers assess that, and then our staff communicates with the hospital daily to ensure that whatever the needs are of the parents and the child that day, we're meeting them together. So we call that, Ryan, family-centered care. between us and the hospital. And the idea is to understand the entire family, not just the disease.
Yeah, and again, that is so nice that you're working, say, with the hospital to understand the full picture rather than just the need of that individual family member. So a moment ago, I'm sure you said you've been founded 40 years ago, so 1981. So since then, what have been, say, some of your greatest struggles, and how did you overcome them?
You're so kind to ask, because everybody always wants to know, like, what's happening right now. So I've only been there 20 years. I haven't been there 40 years. But for the first 20 years, they operated with one old apartment building that had been turned into 10 bedrooms. And it was run by a lot of volunteers. And then 20 years ago, when I was hired, we bought a second building and we added 24 bedrooms. So we had a total of 34 bedrooms. And at that point, it's now 6 years ago, the hospital moved across town, because there's such a big need for hospital beds in the Bay Area that they built a brand new children's hospital. And we then built a brand new state-of-the-art building with the 85 rooms that we have now. So I can say that one challenge has been, money, because nobody pays anything. So we go out and fundraise the money privately from individuals, corporations, and foundations. But Ryan, that is not the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is being the support to distraught families. And I can say 100% of the time, striking the chord between being positive and supportive when a child is dying or who has died is an incredibly difficult task for anybody who's ever done something like that. And we're always trying to think of ways to ease the path that the families are going through while they're at Family House. I mentioned that some of the patients are being treated as outpatients, which means that they're staying at Family House while they're sick, and they go back and forth to the hospital for treatment procedures and surgeries. Other children, about 40%, are actually in the hospital. So it's the parents who are going back and forth between Family House and the hospital, and we're about 4 blocks away. So we have a shuttle service, they can walk, we have Uber, we have all various modes of transportation. But I think the important thing is not routinizing the way that we support families, but saying to each family, what do you need? How are you doing today? Maybe somebody is having trouble, with homework or applying for insurance or whatever it is. So we try to hone in on what each one of our families needs daily. And I'm just going to say this as a plug for this beautiful nonprofit organization that we've created. We're not bound by a corporation. We're not bound by a hamburger company, because we may have heard of Ronald McDonald houses, which are beautiful and wonderful, but we don't have to abide by anybody else's rules. If somebody needs financial support, if they need to go buy food for a special diet that their child needs, we make a decision on the spot and go get it done. Nobody has to fill out an income statement. They don't have to prove that they're in need. They don't have to ask twice if they really need, something specific for their child. We do it. And there's a great feeling of freedom about that, if you need something, let's do it. So that's a nice, that's a really wonderful way to address whatever the needs are for our families.
Yeah, and thanks again so much for sharing all that information with us, because to me, it sounds like you guys are there just for that really strong support for, let's say, the individuals and the families. And you're also there to, just offer some empathy towards them and look after, say, just the things that we as humans take for granted on a daily basis. It could be getting up, getting your car, say, serviced, or it could be going to do a food shop, etc. But you guys are there to offer that support for the families, especially in these times of, say, distress as well. So the next question then, I know you said how many you had a certain amount of families there at each period, but how many families in total would you say you've supported since it's founded in 1981?
Well, I tried to figure that out last year, and it's over 65,000 families, but
Wow.
I can't tell you exactly because we didn't really have very good computers
Wow.
uh, before about 20 years ago. So I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you that the average length of stay is about a week and a half for the initial stay. That means that some families come for maybe one night for a checkup. Some families come for longer treatment. The initial treatment for a child with cancer is typically about 6 weeks. So of the 80 plus families who stay with us every night, about the average length of stay is a week and a half. However, if the treatment lasts, like, say, 2 years or something, they come back frequently. So we really get to know them and we really get to understand what their circumstance is. One of the great benefits of running Family House is you see these kids, especially the ones I really feel sorriest for are teenage girls. And trust me, I was about as vain as they came when I was a teenager, but they come in, they can throw their wigs off. They don't have to pretend to be, normal. They come back to Family House and, they've got tubes coming out of their noses, or they've got ports, or they've got whatever it is that they need for their treatment. And once they get back to Family House, they don't have to pretend that they're like everybody else, because everybody understands what we're going through, and everybody understands that we're all in the same boat here. And I think that one of the best things about this podcast, Ryan, is that you are sharing good news about some of the people who suffer the most, and who really do need a helping hand for this period of time. And I just want to thank you so much for really not just describing what Family House does, but good acts that happen all over the place that go unnoticed for the most part. And your part in making this work visible is, I would say, is almost as important as the work we do, because we all need to be uplifted right now. We need good news. We need to know how resilient the human spirit is in helping one another. And, not to go on too long, but as our founder, Art Ablin, who is a doctor, he's an oncologist, said, it's not what you get that makes you happy in life. It's what you give. And so by giving us this airtime, I really just want to thank you for making what we do more visible.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I agree. Like, I honestly believe the secret to living is giving. And from what you just explained there, what you guys do is a very, say, family community feel for those, say, children in need, for the support to just make them feel at home, which is what you guys do. So just as we wrap this up now, what is, say, your vision for the future?
Well, my vision for the future is to never have to turn anybody away who needs help. I want everybody, every family who needs help to receive it. I want them, when they need a hand up, they get a hand up. And I also hope that you and your subscribers really, tell more good stories about what happens in this life, because it's by supporting one another and creating a community of compassion that we're going to make it through this very hard time we're in. And again, I want to thank you, Ryan, for your part in doing that worldwide, because your voice is so important.
Thank you so much. And Alexandra, just as we sort of wrap this up now, what can somebody do to help? And what action steps can they take to be a part of the solution?
Well, I think that, if you live in the Bay Area, our website is familyhouseinc.org, www.familyhouseinc.org. But even more importantly, wherever it is you live, do something for somebody else. If you can help a family with a sick child, It's a magnificent thing to do, and you'll never be sorry that you did it.
Thank you so much. And for you listening, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app. That will show the algorithms that this is an important conversation, so more people can learn why it's so important to support those families during difficult times.